and start my presentation. So let me make sure that it in fact is recording. It looks like it. Great. Okay. My name is Mary Beth Adams, and I am the outreach coordinator for the Alamance County Public Libraries. This session is using outreach vehicles to provide internet access. So there are some notes for participants at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to leave any questions you have for me in the chat, and I will hopefully be able to get to them at the end. I'm going to go, there we go. Yes, I have started the recording. So the founding partner for the Library 2.0 conferences is the San Jose State University School of Information. So we thank them very much for their support so that these conferences can be free and accessible to all. So as I said, my name is Mary Beth Adams, and I am the outreach coordinator for the Alamance County Public Libraries in beautiful North Carolina. Alamance County is located in central North Carolina, and we are about within an hour of some major metropolitan areas, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and we're about 2 hours away from Charlotte. So we have a really nice mix of access to some of these great metropolitan areas, to culture and restaurants, but we don't have the traffic and the high housing prices. So I think it's a great place to live, and very excited to be in Alamance County. This is a map that shows you a little bit about what our county looks like. The 4 stars that you see right here in the center of the screen, these are the 4 branch libraries that we have. So right here. We have two libraries in Burlington, 1 in Graham, and 1 in Mebane. But as you might guess, there's not a library, or not, no representation, I suppose, in the northern part of our county or in the southern part of our county. A lot of our population does live in this band along the interstate. The red line there is the interstate, but we do actually have a lot of people also who are rural. So our county is, I said it, partially urban, partially rural. The libraries are located right along the center, but that leaves a lot of places that are not well represented. And then our rural areas do not have great access to broadband internet, or to the internet in some places at all. Some places are heavily forested. People live in beautiful houses, but they are down long driveways away from the major roads. And so some places don't even get good cell phone coverage or satellite coverage. So there is a real issue with internet connectivity in our rural areas. We also have connectivity issues in our urban areas, but I'll discuss that a little bit later on. So what brought about this decision to use our mobile vehicles as internet hotspots, basically? Well, our county our county commissioners had a discussion about what the major needs were within the county, along with the library and other partners. And one of the biggest issues that came up was internet connectivity. This is probably true for many of you. And the library said, well, what we envision working well is having a vehicle that can go around and provide the internet access in these remote areas. So we met with our county commissioners, got them to approve that. And then our first step really was to find a vehicle that could be retrofitted to provide Wi-Fi. And we were very lucky because we already had an old courier van that could be used for that purpose. So the next stop after getting a van was figuring out what stops we would want to go to. Some of our library administration drove around our county. They talked to partners, to people that we knew who lived in those areas, any of our patrons that we knew lived in those areas, and said where would be some good commercial structures, county structures, gathering spaces that would be a good place to do this. And then finally, after we got a list of places, we contacted them to see if they would be willing to let us park in their parking lots. Most people are more than willing to do this, but of course, some are always going to have reservations. Is this going to interfere with me trying to run my business? And the question that I probably get the most when I talk about this project is, what were the costs? So I have tried to lay out what our costs are. However, we are a department of our county government. So some bills do not come to the library, such as our mechanic and such as our internet provider. So I do not have exact numbers for those, but I have given at least some estimation of what we think it cost. So the van was already owned by the county. It was our old courier van. That, of course, did not cost us anything to at least procure the vehicle. You can debate whether it is better to use an old vehicle, which costs nothing, or to get a new vehicle, which of course is going to be $25,000, $30,000, but will not have maintenance costs. So that is something to consider as you're thinking about this. But we did decide to go with a used van. We used a local mechanic to rewire the vehicle, and so that way we could add an electric battery and the router. And I'm estimating that cost around $300, but that really is a total guess. You can speak to a local mechanic and they can probably tell you how much that would cost in your area. Then we had a company that our IT department in the county works with to add a battery behind the driver's seat, a cradle point router in the back of the vehicle, and antenna on the roof, and of course, a way to access the battery, so the plug can plug in. And all of that was around $2,500. The cradle point router is designed to go into vehicles. It is designed for this purpose. It has 2 SIM cards and can provide service for up to 60 people with a reach of 300 yards. Our router software cost us about $1,200 annually, and then our filtering software costs $190 annually. And pretty much our filtering software is what we use in the library. It prevents people from watching porn and streaming movies because that uses so much bandwidth. Our gas cost, every year is probably a little different, but around $65 annually. And then maintenance costs vary because, due to what's going on that year with weather or with just your vehicle breaking down. So ours is a very well-used van. Our maintenance costs were probably much more than they would be if you had a slightly newer vehicle. But that is the balance. Do you get a new vehicle and not have the maintenance costs but pay upfront, or do you use an old vehicle and just know that you're going to incur some of those maintenance costs? Other costs. We do get our Wi-Fi service from our cell phone carrier. And this again is an estimate. We get a government rate per line. $30 is the lowest that Verizon offers right now on their business plan. So I'm going to assume that the government rate is probably a little less than that even. We went with Verizon because the county already had a contract with them, and we could just add on this new service. But for us, the prices for all the big carriers were comparable and their service areas were very similar. Also on the van, we have tables, chairs, tablets, bookcase, a tent, and then crates of giveaway books. So depending on what your library already has, the cost for all of that will vary, but it's not a huge amount of money. We spend less than $500 a year on books, probably less than $400 a year on books, and it is mostly children's books. These three companies are ones that I would recommend. We have not started working with First Book yet, but they provide books for organizations that work with low-income groups, low-income schools, and so we will believe we will qualify for that because the library serves all children, including ones who live in low-income areas. Scholastic, of course, has a great program to get books into schools, into libraries, and Interstate Books for School also has great programs for getting books that you can give away. Things I would consider is what cell phone provider is going to be the best one. I would recommend driving around with someone who has that service to make sure that you're actually getting service in the places that you're wanting to serve. Sometimes a coverage map says, oh yeah, we cover that area, but when you get out there, maybe not, or not with a strong enough signal. Is there a partner who might help you procure a van? City and county government, a nonprofit organization. We have gotten money from some nonprofits in our area to help fund some of our mobile vehicles. Looking at right now at grants, from the, through the government to see if we can get a new van using that money. So that I would recommend you explore all your options with that. And then finally, think about what population you will be serving to begin with. And then maybe if that changes, will your program be able to pivot to meet the needs of other groups? These are our vehicles. Mostly what I'm talking about today is our mobile cafe, the one on the left. It has been in service since 2018, and this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about retrofitting the van. However, I did want to mention that we do have a mobile library, which is in service starting this week. Monday was our very first day of really running around. We had done a few events, but anyway, we are extremely excited. It also has the router and offers internet access, but it is not in locations for an extended period of time like our mobile cafe will be. And its main goal is not necessarily to provide internet access for people to come use, but to be a mobile library, to let people check out books, pick up holds, all the wonderful things that you can do in a library. Our stops. Like many services and programs, we have a pre-COVID schedule, our schedule during the worst of COVID, and then our current schedule. So from 2018 to March of 2020, we went to rural stops. We went to areas that were more than 10 miles from our branches. And that was when we were providing internet access. We gave away books. We had our brochures for all of our programming. We were really just getting out into those rural communities. During COVID, of course, when COVID began, we closed everything down. A couple of months after we had closed, some of the low-income organizations or organizations that served low-income people in our county contacted me and said, can your mobile cafe serve some of these housing authority apartment complexes, as well as other low-income apartment complexes, and provide internet access so kids can go to virtual school. Our school system did eventually get enough hotspots to cover all of their students, but it was probably not until well into the fall 2020 school year that happened. So we were able to take our mobile cafe out. We did not give away books really until late in the 2020 school year. Is that correct? We're trying to think 2021 school year. So it was not until, I guess, last spring that we gave away books again, because we just did not feel comfortable doing that during the worst of the pandemic. So now we are looking to the future, and we're doing a combination of both these rural stops that we were serving before the pandemic and the more urban stops that we served during the pandemic. And just a note, we cannot go to schools because we do not provide the level of internet filtering that schools require through SEPA. So we go to a couple of stops that are school adjacent. They are near a school, but that was one of the decisions we made, was that we wanted to offer the level of filtering that the library offers, but not go as far as what the schools require. And we don't want to be, we don't want to get them in trouble, and we don't want to be in trouble for offering freer internet than they are supposed to have in a school environment. So potential stops you might consider: community centers, parks, churches, small businesses, and restaurants, especially in rural areas. We have found that those are often the place that people gather, and one of the few places that has a parking lot that is large enough to accommodate the van and the people parking there. In town, going to apartment complexes in low-income neighborhoods, we are starting to go to after-school programs. We figure that's a really good way to find families who need this assistance, and really to give books to kids. There's just such a great need to put books in the hands of children. And then we go to events, we go to farmers markets, we go to sports practices, we go to sports tournaments, we go to community and church gatherings, we go anywhere that we think that we can make an impact and offer our internet access as well as our free books for the community. The one fly in the ointment is the amount of time that we are at a stop and the frequency of visits to stops. It's a drop in the bucket. It's 2 or 4 hours once every 2 weeks. But we look at this and we say that drop is something. I always think of the story of the gentleman who was walking on the beach and sees hundreds of starfish, and sees some children just desperately throwing these beached starfish back in the ocean. And he walks up to them and says, why are you even bothering? You can't save all these starfish. And the kids say, but think about the difference we're making on the ones we save. And so that is the way our philosophy on this is, that even if what we are doing is just a drop in the bucket, it is another drop. We are helping our community in the largest capacity that we can right now, and hopefully we are acting as one stopgap toward for these people who are really suffering without internet access. So once your program gets going, you of course need to do an evaluation and figure out how things are going. So we were getting ready to begin this and really thinking about this when COVID hit. We had been in service for about 1.5 years when that happened. And so we had given it time and we're evaluating stops. So we were talking to our partners. We were talking to people at the stops. Is this the best place? Is there another place you can think of? How can we be of service to you? Success is going to look different at different stops. For instance, one of our stops is at a local park. We probably get 20, 30, 40 people coming and picking up books, talking to our staff, having, maybe not sometimes using the internet, but that stop mostly it is people choosing a free book, and that is success at that stop. But we have other stops where we might just see a few people a week, but those people are regulars and they are excited to see us, and they ask, hey, next time can you bring some Christian fiction? And our staff tries to do that, to bring what the people want to get via books. Other stops, especially with our low income neighborhoods, during when kids were trying to go to virtual school, we would have quite a few people, 20, 30 people connecting, and that was success. So when you're judging your stops, think about what success will mean at each stop. Look around at your lower attended stops, see if there's a better place. As I said, we ask our community members, is there a better place? Right now, or I guess before COVID, we were going to a church out in the country, and we just weren't really connecting with anybody there. And there is a restaurant across the street. We have asked them if we can start attending there using their parking lot, and they have agreed. We did it once. Nobody came and talked to our staff member, but we are hoping that we can develop a relationship with them. And after being there for a couple of months, people will say, the library is always here when I come on this date. Maybe I ought to go see what's going on. And sometimes you do have to accost people, but we try not to do that too much, especially in a parking lot of a restaurant, because people, they're there for another reason. But yeah, you can also, with my last point, advertise, ask your partners, ask your patrons to share with their networks, ask your the restaurant where, we're going to give them a stack of flyers that they can put at their cash register, so people will understand what we are doing there and why we are there. And the picture, I wanted to include this. This is a giant magnet. We have 2 of them, and they go on either side of our van, so that people don't have to ask us for what is the network and what is the password. People do anyway, but at least we do have it in pretty large print on the side of the vehicle so that people can see it. And finally, these are our dreams for our program and for our vehicle. We would love to have a new van with a ramp. Our old van is hanging in there, but it doesn't like to run when it's hot. It overheats and has some pretty major issues with it at times. So our dream is in the next year or so to get a new van with a ramp, with L tracks on the sides of the interior of the van, to attach book carts, to have book carts and nice display units, to have some STEM supplies and programming materials, to extend our stops even more, to allow, certainly we can bring craft supplies now and do that. And actually, as we're starting to go to after school programs and do some more outreach with that, we will certainly do that in the van that we have. But it would be really nice to expand that program even more. And then to be able to also use the van for lobby stops and preschool story times, and take the job from a part-time job that just works in the afternoons to a full-time job that would work all day, do lobby stops and preschool story times in the mornings, and then do the stops that we are doing now in the afternoons. So those are our dreams, and it is something to consider if you are looking to do this, to make your van a multi-use vehicle, something that can serve the needs of several populations without you really having to do a lot more work on that van. So that is the end of my presentation. I see there are a couple of chats, so I am going to open up that, but this is my email address and my phone number. I would welcome you to call. All right, so first question was, were you able to go more often to these stops during the pandemic, or was it biweekly? It was biweekly. As I said, we have a part-time person. We had 10 stops that we were going to. Our housing authority has, let me think about this. I think they told us which of their stops were had a lot of children. And so when we would go to those stops, we would probably be serving, I said we usually would get around 20 connections. So it was at least 20 families. I think there were probably more, but some did end up having hotspots, and some did have internet access, but a lot of them did not. And unfortunately, it was because they couldn't afford it, and because our internet access company said, "Oh, we'll give people free accounts during the pandemic," but their caveat was you had to not owe them any money, which unfortunately ruled out a lot of people. So yes, it was just biweekly, and that was why I said it felt like a drop in the ocean sometimes, but it was something, and that was how we looked at it, as we are providing something. Some of our patrons use this, and families would come in to town and use our internet outside our library, during the pandemic when we were not open. And then we opened, I want to say, for limited hours starting in the summer, late summer maybe. So this was really the sole internet access for, I would say, maybe 6 months, maybe not even that long. And then after that, families could at least access our internet. A lot of our housing authority, not a lot, not all of them, but of the places we visited, every other week, there were 3 of them that are within walking distance to one of our libraries. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for attending. If there are any, as I said, if you want to contact me, this is my information. I am happy to answer any questions you have, share any more numbers that I can offer. And thank you very much for coming. All right, I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to go ahead and end so you can get to your next sessions. Bye-bye.